Here, in the Lyndon Johnson Library in Austin, Texas, some key evidence of Nixon's plot is sealed in an envelope that is marked with an X. Much of it was obtained through wiretaps, and their contents have mostly never been disclosed.
Well, President Johnson asked me to seal this envelope and to mark it not to be opened until 50 years. It touches on the fact that there are certain things that are done by the government for national security reasons. The fact that this was the mixing of national security techniques with domestic politics was what was wrong.
Nixon learned that a file on the bombing halt had been lodged at the Brookings Institute in Washington. Nixon might well have feared that the file was potentially incriminating because it could contain information on what he did to undermine the peace talks. Nixon wanted the file, and what he did to get it may have set him on the road to Watergate and the destruction of his presidency. A conversation, tape-recorded in the Oval Office, finds President Nixon, Henry Kissinger, and Bob Haldeman discussing the file kept in the Brookings Institute.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if Brookings had the file.
The bombing halt is on the same file, or in some of the same hands.
Do we have it?
I've asked for it. You said you didn't have it. We can't.
We had nothing here, Mr. President.
I asked for that because I needed
Yeah, but-
to get in and get those files.
Less than 2 weeks later, President Nixon is heard asking Haldeman and Kissinger if Brookings has been broken into yet.
We are going to use any means. Is that clear? Did they get the Brookings Institute raided last night? No. Get it done. I want it done. I want the Brookings Institute, say, clean out.
Such is the intensity with which he wants the stuff, says he wants the stuff, and demands a break-in in order to get hold of it, that one has to surmise that the reason he wanted it is because he was afraid that his own role in interfering with the peace talks would be revealed in the files.
One afternoon, a wide-eyed member of my staff came in the office, and he just looked really frightened. And he said, "I've got to talk to you." He said, "They think there are sensitive documents in there that the president should have access to. They know the Brookings won't give them up, so they want me to arrange to have somebody firebomb the place, then send burglars into the place after the alarms go off and extract these papers." So we could have well had the Brookings affair instead of the Watergate affair, had history played just a little bit differently.
It's speculation, but it's sensible speculation, that if he'd been concerned to find out what was in the Brookings Institution files about that, so concerned that he ordered a break-in there, then that could well have been the reason for the Watergate break-ins, to find out what they had on him.
The Watergate scandal began in 1972 during a presidential election campaign which Nixon was certain to win. Burglars linked to the White House were arrested breaking into the Watergate complex to place bugs in the Democratic Party's election headquarters. They had targeted the office of the chairman, Larry O'Brien.
Larry O'Brien had been briefed in 1968 on the Republican interference with the peace initiative, and O'Brien might have really compromising information on what he'd done in 1968.
In 1972, the contradictions in Richard Nixon's career and character collided. In the year of Watergate, he became the first US president to visit China. In Moscow, he signed a nuclear arms treaty on the very night the burglars were casing the Watergate. Within 2 years, Congress would prepare to impeach the president, but this year Nixon crowned a year of foreign policy triumphs by addressing both houses of Congress.
An almost unbelievable irony that the break-in was occurring at the same time of this tremendous foreign policy triumph. It was so unnecessary.
The President of the United States.
Here we go again.
Thanks to Nixon, the world seemed a safer place. But it would be another year before America's war in Vietnam was over.
This administration has no higher goal, a goal that I know all of you share, than bringing the Vietnam War to an early and honorable end. We are ending the war in Vietnam, but we shall end it in a way which will not betray our friends, risk the lives of the courageous Americans still serving in Vietnam, break faith with those held prisoners by the enemy, or stain the honor of the United States of America.
In the 4 years since Nixon had become president, over 20,000 American soldiers were killed and 111,000 had been wounded. Their names are among those engraved on the wall of the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington. The wall does not name the more than 600,000 Vietnamese soldiers on both sides who died in that time. On the day of his own funeral, it looked as if Nixon had won his last political victory. Forced to resign over the Watergate scandal, Nixon had spent the rest of his life trying to resurrect his tarnished reputation.
I think Nixon was a distinguished president and much less political than many of those who followed him. What would have happened if the establishment that he both feared and revered had shown him some love? Would that have liberated him from his resentments, or would it have driven him deeper into his isolation? And I left the question open.
On behalf of all 4 former presidents who are here, may the day of judging President Nixon on anything less than his entire life and career come to a close.
In his inauguration speech, Nixon had said, "The greatest title history can bestow is that of peacemaker." They chose that as his epitaph.